Thank you very much, and welcome back. We're also brought to you by my official dentist, Dr. Alan Chenman, and his Smile Center of Linwood. If you check them out at smilecenternj.com, go to the testimonials page, the before and after smile gallery. The photos of actual before and after cases are startling. They're amazing. Dr. Chenman is located at 1999 New Road, Suite D in Linwood. If you do call 609-601-2199, please tell him that I sent you. Cosmetic and restorative dentist Dr. Alan Chenman and Dr. Henry Salama. I have used both. Dr. Chenman does almost everything for me, but Dr. Salama has certain incredible talents in implant dentistry, and he has done groundbreaking techniques. He's flown around the world, actually, by different professionals to actually lecture on his techniques. He has condensed the amount of time that certain things take that used to take a lot longer, because he can do certain things at one time that used to require a certain procedure, then rest and healing, and then a certain other procedure later. It's really incredible what they can do at the Smile Center of Linwood by Dr. Alan Chenman. Porcelain veneers, dental implants, crowns, bridges, inlays, onlays. Dr. Chenman can now correct a wide variety of the so-called permanent cosmetic dental problems. Again, 1999 New Road, Suite D in Linwood, almost in Summers Point, 609-601-2199, general and cosmetic dentistry. Simply put, perfecting the art of beautiful smiles. Dr. Alan Chenman on the World Wide Web at smilecenternj.com. The following program, and we're going to be until about just before 8:30 with Chuck Malamut. This program is presented typically on Tuesdays in the 8 o'clock hour. Chuck was traveling on business. We couldn't do what we usually do yesterday, so we set this up even before. This was actually set up before the madness of the past 6 days. Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley, presents this program. Information, views, opinions that are expressed by Chuck are those of Chuck, do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as the date of this broadcast and are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. The presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member SIPC. Let the games begin. Chuck, holy smokes. It would normally be yesterday, and we'd say a week went by. Look at how things can change in one calendar week.
Good morning, Harry.
Good morning, Chuck.
I think.
Have you slept in a week?
It's been challenging. Certainly, all eyes are focused around the world, and certainly in China. You've had a number of converging forces. Oil.
The bottom's falling out of oil.
Well, it's not that. I don't want to predict the bottom. I'm not going to predict the top. But I will tell you this morning, as we were waking up, that Schlumberger announced taking out a company called Cameron. So you're starting to see at a pretty good premium. So you're starting to see some consolidation in the oil patch, so to speak. And the question at hand is, how distressed is that debt per se at oil where it is currently today? Touching 40, we'll call it, down 60-some% within a year's time. You're now forcing companies to do things that they would normally not do. So are we at the bottom of oil? That's anybody's guess. I've heard 30, I've heard 20, I've heard 10. So, sometimes, I feel like sometimes the strategists are trying to throw a dart at the wall, so to speak, and pick a number. But I'm thinking that, if you look, outside of, and it's really hard for us because where we live right now, in an area that unfortunately is economically depressed.
We're not enjoying the recovery that others are enjoying.
No, and when you see what is happening within the marketplace, you feel, it can become very, very distressing as you're watching, one, your real estate values decline, and two, you're watching, your potential equities in your portfolio, your liquid assets go the wrong way. But I will tell you, Harry, that outside of here, we are seeing some pretty strong economic growth, as evidenced just in, I believe it was yesterday, with real estate sales.
Yep.
Hitting, on all cylinders back to pre-2008 levels. So that goes back to the demand is now in force. You certainly still have low mortgage rates. And again, there's a discussion with what happens to mortgage interest rates when and if the Fed starts to come with their rate increases, and we can have that whole discussion.
Looks like your younger brother Harry is going to prove to be correct again when I very confidently predicted that there will be no rate increase in September. I hereby am proclaiming it to be true. Chuck, if I made the statement, and I'm going to dare make it, I know that you don't focus on any one day, but these have been an extraordinary 6 days. If I say that China sneezed and the United States of America got a cold, would that be accurate?
I might go a little bit further than a sneeze.
All right, they got a cold and we got a cold. I don't want to say pneumonia. Or they got pneumonia and we got a cold.
No, Harry, I think if you take a look at the Chinese market and kind of put that into perspective, the fact that in a relatively short period of time, that market went up like a rocket ship, and we discussed this. If you look at the chart, and a lot of that was because of the constraints that the government had taken off.
I always thought they were dishonest in their reporting anyhow, so I didn't know what to make of this.
Well, I think what happens is if you kind of take that onto itself and to what is happening. And last night, as we were sleeping, after the close, the Chinese government came in with another $22 billion. In liquidity, I believe it's a 1 week.
Didn't they reduce interest rates too?
And they did. So now you've had a couple of days where the government is trying to inject liquidity into the marketplace, but if you take a look at, and this is pretty interesting, if you look at a lot of the retail investors in China, because we don't hear a lot as to what happens over there, because Harry, up until the last 6 months, we'll call it, when their market went on that tear, because it is a closed market, we'll call it, to investors outside of China. I guess the good news is we, as investors, did not have that opportunity to buy it unless we bought it via the Hang Seng, which is the Hong Kong market. But let's take a look at this and put it in perspective. And it's going to take me just a minute or two to go through this. If you remember back in 2008 when we were faced with a lot of stress in the financial markets, one of the items that we continued to hear about was margin and margin calls and margin availability and what the rules and regulations are with respect to margin borrowing. And I think to kind of put in perspective, if you want to buy on margin and you have quality equities that are marginable here in the U.S., if you put up $1, let's say comfortably you can borrow 50 cents on that dollar. And you could go higher than that, but you want to leave some room in your account just in case you have situations like this where the market moves down. So if the market in fact moves down, you will be faced with what is referred to as a margin call. And a margin call needs to be satisfied within a relatively short period of time. I think it's anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, depending upon settlement and the amount of notice that you receive. If you do not come up with the necessary funds to satisfy that margin call, outside assets, cash we'll call it, then you have to either make a decision what to sell to cover that call. Now, let's say you have a $10,000 margin call, Harry. Mm-hmm. If you don't come with $10,000 in cash outside, you need to come with 3 1/3 times that, based on the math. So you need about $30,000 to $33,000. very, very quickly. And if you cannot do that, I'm sorry, if you don't come with the $10,000 in cash and you need $33,000 in securities within your account, and if you don't indicate what you want to sell, you're going to be sold out. The compliance departments and these brokerage firms basically they just sell. And you might say, well, geez, that's for the most part, I guess that's a reasonable and acceptable best practices here that we've instilled here in the U.S. But let's take a look at China for a second. Totally different. The Chinese stock market for the average Chinese retail investor is relatively new. And when I make this statement, only 1 out of 20 Chinese residents actually participate in the equity market. But here's the way their rules are written. You can buy on margin. Not only can you buy on margin, but the margin requirements, at least until now, are significantly different in China as they are versus here in the U.S. You can buy significantly more, a higher percentage on margin. I think it's double to what you can do here in the U.S., maybe even higher. So let's do that same calculation where you have a $10,000, well, let me back up. You have a $100,000 account. You borrow $100,000 on margin. The market in China goes south. Not only are you liquidating your assets, but you are underwater. It's like having back in 2008, Harry, when you had a mortgage and you got turned upside down. So you have to come to the table with more liquidity. So that is, we're not hearing about that, but that is also happening.
Pain on top of pain.
In China. So, is it 7% growth? Is it 3% growth? Are they, is the government, trying to control those markets? If so, they've not been terribly successful in the last 6+ days. And I think what your listeners and those that are invested in the equity markets, you have to. This is a time where you really have to take a step back and understand what you own and why you own it, and what your time frame is. Now, if you are looking to trade this equity market, chances are you will get completely whipsawed, as evidenced in what happened on Monday, as evidenced in happened yesterday. My partner Mike and I, were communicating as I was traveling, and I will admit, Harry, unfortunately, the rental car that I had, I asked for Sirius satellite radio, and I got to check the car out, and I was advised that there was no radio in that particular car. So it did force me to listen to some stations that, unfortunately, I would swear up and
kids.
I would swear up and down, Harry, that I would never, ever listen.
But remember, you have your cell phone, you have your smartphone, you have your Radio Pup app, you have WPG1450.com. There was your brother Harry. There was Michelle Dawn Mooney. There was
Harry.
Sean Hannity.
Harry, look, you weren't reporting. First of all, when you were on, I was in the air.
I was reporting brilliantly with Steve Forbes,
and then. Unfortunately, like I said, I will admit to you.
Just admit you were listening to NPR.
I am admitting it to you and to your listeners.
Chris Coleman, mark the tape. 7:48 a.m. on Wednesday, August 26th, 2015. Chuck, you're in recovery now. I was listening to NPR. Say it, Chuck. Harry, I was listening.
Harry, I was listening to NPR.
There he goes. I'm going to go to break. We're going to go to break. We're getting right there. It would be like the dishonest media, not let you say what you really mean. You said it. He said it, kids. You mark it down. He said it. He was listening to NPR. All right, we're going to be right back. Don't go away. Oh, Chuck, as I feather into the break, and I got to get to the break real quick so we have a nice segment coming back, and then Chuck will be with us for the first half of the next hour. Thank you for your generous participation and sponsorship of the upcoming Atlantic City Air Show. As you know, WPG Talk Radio 1450. We're the home of the Atlantic City Air Show, and I want to thank you very, very much, Chuck, for your support.
You're welcome, Harry.
We'll be right back. A lot of exciting things here at WPG Talk Radio 1450. Just mentioned, home of the Atlantic City Air Show. We've entered into a partnership with Penn State University with the football team and their football schedule, all Penn State games and the pregame shows, postgame shows, all the elements of that. WPG Talk Radio 1450, your home for Penn State, and also your home for the Philadelphia Flyers. What a week it's been nationally with all these economic matters, but what a programming week it's been at WPG Talk Radio 1450. Back with our official financial advisor, the best in the business, Chuck Malamut. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck and his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley in their Northfield office at 609-383-2010. And we are brought to you by my official country club, the Mays Landing Golf and Country Club, 1855 Cates Road in Mays Landing, on the World Wide Web at mayslandinggolf.com. This Thursday, and the weather is going to be perfect for the Ladies Sip and Hit Golf Clinics Thursday nights, every Thursday night, 4:30 p.m., hour and a half of instruction time with the pros, and then you enjoy a fabulous buffet in the grill room. To register, call 609-641-4411, extension 10. Put this down on your schedule as well. Hugely popular, not this Friday, but next, Friday, September 4th, Flight of the Fireflies, the annual paint night that they're doing twice, I should say, not annual, but twice a month at the Mays Landing Golf and Country Club, and you can get a discount by going to mayslandinggolf.com, clicking on the paint night hyperlink, and then just enter the code MLCC, which is Mays Landing Country Club, 20. And the 20 means you're going to get $20 off your ticket price. MLCC 20 for the $20 discount. And Monday, September 7th, the annual Labor Day Golf Tournament, perfect timing, 8 o'clock buffet, nice breakfast and registration hour, 9 a.m. shotgun start. Stop by the pro shop. Call or stop by the pro shop to register, 609-641-4411, extension 10. Chuck, you've made a career out of not getting hung up on any one day, but I'm curious how everything looked great. Even though China went down again yesterday, our futures were looking really strong. There was growth all day, and in the closing seconds, it all went south for a sixth straight negative result. Do we know what happened? Was it just it ran out of steam at the end, or?
Well, Harry, as it turns out, when you put an order into either buy or sell or exchange in a mutual fund, those tickets basically are accumulated over the course of the trading day, and then the portfolio managers of the respective funds begin to do either the purchases or the liquidations, to satisfy either the redemptions or the purchases of the individual investor, including some institutional accounts as well.
So the gains were happening, but then when you calculated the end day activities, it resulted in a 200 and something.
Well, I think what happened, Harry, as we got to the open or the pre-open on Tuesday, as a result of what I'll call China round one, where the government comes in and they step in with what they believe to be some reassuring events, to help keep their stock market in check. I mean, that, if you think about it, we got off to a really good start. And think about China for a second, 2 consecutive days of 8% plus. The 50% year-to-date return on that marketplace through, I believe, was the end of June, evaporated over a relatively short period of time, and now they're actually in negative territory. So when the Chinese government came in with the injection, I mean, they had 25 basis point cut to the benchmark one-year lending and deposit rates, 50 basis point cut to its reserve requirement ratio for all depository financial institutions. What they were trying to do is inject capital into the system and get that market calm, so to speak. So that was all. We looked at that initially as a good sign. as the European markets closed on higher notes, Harry, on Tuesday, and then as we got to the end of the day, you have that give up. That last it wasn't the last 15 minutes. It actually happened within the last hour, and I was en route, boarded a plane up 450. Turned my phone on when we landed, and Mike had sent me a text that that said something. We're down 220 or 210 or whatever it may be, and I was like, I thought for a minute that I was, there was something wrong with the phone, and obviously as I started reading, so be it that we find out that while the reversal, Harry, obviously was disappointing, and now you have a tremendous amount of anxiety. And you can feel it when you're chatting with clients and prospective clients and, friends, colleagues, or whatever it may be.
When we 6 days ago or so, 6 trading sessions ago, opened with the Dow down over 1,000. I forget exactly how much, but it was more than 1,000.
Well, that was actually on Monday.
Okay. Were we close to those new rules, those curbs that get put in where you actually shut
We
trading?
were close, and unfortunately, a number of stocks, there was a dissemination of orders, and as a result, because of the dissemination, they halted trading, and there were some trades that looked very, very funky. I mean, imagine for a minute J.P. Morgan, number 1, number 2 bank in the U.S., down 20% on the open. So what happened was, because of the dissemination of orders, and you just had that flood of sell, and then all the buyers, walked away. There was no one interested in owning equities at that point in time. In a relatively short period of time, the market, pre-open was down 200, and then literally we're down 1,000.
I've never been able to explain this. Let's see, Chuck, how you can do with this. People do ask me off air. They love your show, and they say, Harry, sometime bring up to Chuck, because nobody likes to bring up bad news, but we're having a little bit of bad news now. Where does it go? Like, there was a valuation, it was worth this much, and now it's not. And then people ask, where does it go? Is it just like
where does it go? It just poof. Yeah. Well, I think what happens is that the assets basically evaporate.
Yeah.
You think about the fact that there's only a finite number of shares available to trade in an equity. And if a company is worth $100 billion, we'll call it, the market capitalization, and we'll do the calculations easy, and you're trading for $100 a share, and all of a sudden, because of the mitigating supply and demand factors out there, with no one willing to buy the stock at 100 but willing to buy it at 80, and that's where the buyers and sellers meet, then in a relatively short period of time, you have wiped out $20 billion of market cap.
It's very, very interesting. Kirk Conover, Wharton School genius, writes in that there's a theory that this is an overdue correction. Dow stocks trading at 13 to 14 times earnings. Historic average is 15. With low interest rate environment, that they can trade at 18 to 19 times earnings, and that there is a doctor at the Wharton School, Dr. Jeremy Siegel, who says that the Dow will trade at 18 to 19 times earnings and go to 19,000 in the first quarter of 2016. So with all the bad news that you've been hearing for the last 6 days, there is a doctor from the Wharton School saying that this thing is going to go absolutely crazy in the north direction, not in the south direction. It's only halftime. We're going to come back strong with Chuck Malamut right after this important timeout. It's early in the morning. It's halftime. This is the most relevant two-way talk radio broadcast in New Jersey history. We'll be right back. We are. Thank you very much, and welcome back. It's exactly 5 minutes past the hour. For almost 25 years, every Tuesday in the 8 o'clock hour, Chuck Malamut and I have convened. We're doing it today on Wednesday because Chuck was on official Morgan Stanley business yesterday, and the timeliness of Chuck's appearance this morning is unbelievable. And this program is brought to you by Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck, do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of today's broadcast and are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member SIPC. And Chuck, just trust your co-host here for 25 years, Hurley in the Morning. I'm going to open up the phone lines at 609-407-1450. And welcome to the program, the Vice President and Branch Manager, Morgan Stanley Wealth Management of the Northfield office, Chuck's boss, John D'Alessandro, joins us right now. Mr. Vice President, welcome to Chuck's program.
Harry, good morning. How are you?
Good, sir. How are you? I'm
doing very well. Thank you.
When I said I'm going to the phone lines, Chuck, his headset almost fell off his head. John, today's basically this time frame is a very special moment in terms of Chuck being your employee.
It is. Chuck, good morning, by the way.
Good morning, John.
I'm just calling in. You know, we always hear about how for the past 25 years, Chuck has been the official financial advisor of the Hurley in the Morning program. I just want to make note and congratulate you, Chuck. This Friday, August 28th, marks the one-year anniversary that you joined the firm and the office in Northfield, and I just wanted to say we couldn't be happier, and I'm looking to many, many years ahead with you.
Happy birthday, Chuck.
Well, John, thank you. I'm sitting here, and Harry will attest to the fact that I'm blushing.
He's shocked. We kept a secret, John. We conspired. We knew this was going to be happening, Chuck, for a while, and we conspired.
Well, let me tell you that it's been. It's hard to believe it's been a year, and when we take a step back and look at the fact how quickly we were able to transition. I'm going to say about 98% plus of our clients from where we were to Morgan Stanley, and it's been refreshing. I mean, the breadth, the depth, the scope of what we have at our availability for our clients it dwarfs where we were. I won't talk about where we were and why we left. I think that's not important, but I think what is important is the fact that I do know that we made the right decision, and John, you being our local manager, is obviously very, very helpful in helping us facilitate and continue, to do the right thing for our clients. Now, if you can, I do have a request of you on air, and I need you to go out into the parking lot or wherever you may be and start doing your dance and make certain that the equity markets turn in the right direction here to help all of us.
We'll try our best. We always try to do a little hocus pocus in the office to try to turn this thing around. Maybe today will be the day. Only time will tell. But just to your point, Chuck, the success of the transition and bringing your clients, it's a testament to you, to your entire team. And, it's been a year, and look forward to many more to come. So I don't want to interrupt the show too much. I just wanted to call in and wish you the best on 1 year with us, and we couldn't be happier. And I hope the rest of the show goes very well.
John, thanks for the call. Certainly appreciate it.
And, John, before you go, I've done it many times on the air when we weren't together, you and I, on air, and I'd be remiss if I let this call end without saying thank you for your support, not only for the Hurley in the Morning program, but for the Hurley in the Morning charity, our not-for-profit that has raised more than $550,000 over the past 8 years for our not-for-profit, really important charity organizations throughout the metro market. And Morgan Stanley stepped up with a very generous contribution. We were able to give a whole grant out to a charity because of you, John, and because of Morgan Stanley, and I wanted to say thank you.
You're quite welcome. Anything we can do going forward, just let us know.
Thank you, John. And this is very special that you did this. And, Chuck, I want you to know your boss called me, and we set this up well over a week or more ago because this would have been yesterday, but this would be the broadcast that would be right before you turn 1-year-old baby at Morgan Stanley. And this is the kind of boss you have in John that cares about you, thinks about you, and wanted to honor you on your 1-year anniversary. And, John, you're a classy guy, and that's special that you did this, and I'm impressed.
Thanks. Enjoy the day, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, John. Be well. 10 minutes past the hour. Chuck, when I said we're going to the phone lines, Chuck thinks Harry's going rogue. Come on, this was great, wasn't it?
Harry, John, you and John completely caught me off guard.
We conspired.
No doubt about it. And it's certainly refreshing to get the call in the midst of everything that has happened over the last
Chuck, I remember
last week.
Think about this. I mean, I know the last 6 days have been insanity, or, we wouldn't even be talking about some of this other stuff and we'd be doing something else. But that's what I love about your show, because it's relevant and it's always current. And, you bring such insightful, important information, and people love you. I love you. And, Chuck, I can't believe it's basically been a year since you made the announcement that you were making the move. This has been, I think they say as we get older, each one goes faster. I think it's one of the fastest years of our life, Chuck.
Harry, time flies. There's no doubt about it, and we all.
Can you believe it's a year?
Look, the whole team put put all their efforts, the pedal to the metal, so to speak, and we worked at light speed. And the good news is the clients didn't miss a beat. I mean, you're going to have some minor little tweaks that happen along the way, but for the most part, just the breadth, the depth, the research. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the amount of emails and calls that are available for us as professionals to be able to get a handle on what is happening in it. And what is happening, it's happening at light speed. I mean, we can talk about yesterday. We can talk about today. We can talk about Wednesday of last week. And the fact that we're able to pretty much stay on top of it and get all the necessary information, I think, is critically important. But a couple things, Harry.
Let me say one last thing before we go back to business. Wasn't that nice of your boss to think that much of you to do that?
No, it was exceptional. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we don't have an opportunity to talk a lot during the day because we're all running our respective businesses.
You're doing your job.
And, to kind of take a step back and say, wow, John, took the time to chat on air with about our team, I think says a lot. Yeah. And it's obviously, John is an exceptional leader, and is able to get us to the end line, so to speak, and that's been very helpful.
I liked him from the first time I met him, Chuck. I'm a good judge of people and character. I just liked John D'Alessandro from the first time I met him, and what a classy guy, what a classy move. Paul Rotella writes in, president of the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and the chief executive officer, he writes in, that was terrific. And it was. It was special, and it was honoring, Chuck, and you deserve that. All right, so, Chuck, in terms of, and I think, we just listened to the Fox News broadcast. Futures are booming. I don't think it's Groundhog Day today, Chuck. I know you're not going to make a prediction, but I'm going to. Today ends the 6-day schneid. It's going to be a good day. I think it could potentially be a great day. How do you know? Is this a fair question, Chuck? How do you know when it's time to decide whether it was Donald Trump buying real estate when everybody else was afraid to because he saw buying opportunities? How do you know the difference between a buying opportunity and something that might not be that?
Well, Harry, you never know until it's all over, so to speak. When you're not that I'm suggesting that you're driving, looking through the rearview mirror of your car all day, but there are certainly defining moments that all of us live through, whether it's in the equity markets, whether it's in our careers, whether it's in our personal lives, and as you go through the day to day, you oftentimes take a step back and say, okay, did I or did our team or did we, our family, did we make the right decision? I will tell you one thing, and this has been almost 30 years. Remembering back to 1987, the crash of 1987 after the market, I was in the business for a year.
We were in Disney World, Margie and I.
And, when you start a business, and in the business we're in, the goal is to encourage, prospective clients to be clients, come on board, deliver assets, get the account situated. And I will tell you that I was rather proud of the fact that I think, managing at the time maybe about $5 million. and was in the business for the better part of not quite a year. And in a relatively short period of time, I watched half of that money, basically, as you mentioned earlier, evaporate. And I think
the first time you see something like that, that's not sobering. That is that's bone chilling, isn't it?
Yeah, but what it did for us, or for me and our team, was the fact that it basically got us out of a lot of the day-to-day transaction-oriented business, and got us to be more focused on the planning and ultimately the deliverables. That being
planning and long term.
What is the right asset allocation within that asset allocation? What sort of what size of the market should you own? Whether it's large, mid, small cap, international, emerging markets, and I think that event helped sort of create for us the ability to really deliver to our clients. And I'll give you a perfect case in point. Using the tools that we now have at our availability. If you have a client that's 70 years old, we'll say, and is retired and is concerned about getting to through their retirement years, and you run this analysis, and the analysis comes out that they have a 95% probability of success. That's a really good number. So then you need to take a look at it and say, what do they own? And, are you overweight or are you underweight in certain, parts of the market, whether it's equities and or fixed income? So I think when you take you take a more broad-based approach and look at it that way, rather than, and again, no disrespect to what goes on day to day and the fact that a lot of the financial shows are looking to capture your eyeball to the next commercial. Oftentimes what you're seeing, you got to multiply. You got that 100% multiplier on top of it. I'm not making light of what happened over the last week. It's not fun. There's no doubt about it to see, everything that we've done, as you mentioned on the way in this morning, 2015 and 2014, those gains are basically, they've evaporated.
We might be early fourth quarter of 2014 levels right now.
So let's kind of put this in perspective. Let's take a step back to yesterday.
Tell me how long that's going to take. In fact, I'm going to hold you now. We'll get a break in so we stay on time. We have one more power segment uninterrupted with Chuck in just a few minutes. Special day, special time with Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor to Hurley in the Morning. For all of your financial planning needs, I unconditionally recommend you to my official financial consultant, the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office. Chuck's phone number, 609-383-2010. We'll be right back. Big event, 1 week from today, the only place to enjoy maximum enjoyment of the annual Atlantic City Air Show Thunder over the Boardwalk. That's whether you are listening from home, from the office, wherever you might be, or with your radio or your smartphone right on scene at the air show itself. Because I'm encouraging you, even when you go to the air show, have your smartphone on or your transistor radio, however you choose to listen to the program, on the radio at WPG 1450 on the terrestrial band, or at WPG1450.com, or on your Radio Pup app, because you will get to listen, not just to me, I'll be there and I'll be broadcasting, but to Howdy, who is fantastic and knows every piece of apparatus and what it means and how it's used and the history of all of this, and it will make the Century perspective and perception and enjoyment of the air show that much better, because you will have sight, you will have sound, and you will have context. So stay close, and here's some more details. Back to Chuck Malamut, our official financial advisor to Hurley in the Morning in just a moment. We're also brought to you this hour by All Season Solar, my official solar company, the official solar provider to the Hurley in the Morning program. I am encouraging you to give Frank Neal a call because it's no obligation. You can feel free to say no. All he's going to do is evaluate the last 12 months of your electrical consumption, how many kilowatts your home utilizes, and then he will be able to give you a very, very detailed plan that is engineered, that is designed, and ready to go for your property to show you that this is how much you were paying for your electrical consumption. This is how much you could be paying. And then it's your decision at that point. Many, many different ways to choose the least is what a lot of people do because there's nothing out of pocket. It's how I did it at the Ponderosa. And there's a couple little items that you have to certain credit score, but I have to tell you it's lower than most of the companies that I've heard of prior to All Season Solar, where you had to have 700 or more. You can do, I think it's 680, but don't quote me on that. But it is in my estimation a very attractive way to go. You can fix your costs in a way that you couldn't before. And All Season Solar basically will do everything under the sun so that you can just sit back and reap the savings. They'll be your one contact, single point contact for your solar system design, all the engineering, the building permits, the installation, and the ultimate utility connection. Call Frank Neal. Again, it's no obligation. He's not low sale pressure. He's no sale pressure. He's just going to tell you that this is what I think we can do, this is what I know we can do, and then you will make the decision. 609-317-5491, 609-317-5491. It's never been easier. It's never been a better time to go solar because the benefits are there. New Jersey right now is the leading market for solar panel installation on the East Coast, second largest in the entire nation. It's never been easier. No deposits, no hidden fees, no out-of-pocket costs. You can be green and you can save green. 609-317-5491, Frank Neal. Tell Frank I sent you early in the morning. Chuck, you were saying right before the break.
Harry, I think your question was, or your statement was that you were not convinced, but you're saying that the market was you thought the market was going to go higher today and was going to end the 6-day losing streak.
Yeah, I'm almost going to guarantee it.
All right, so let's take a step back. And we started the discussion, and we're quickly running out of time as to what happened yesterday, and the fact that you had that 600-point swing, and the day before you basically had 1,000-point swing. So while the reversal was certainly disappointing, it's not unusual, Harry, when you have episodes like the sell-off that we had witnessed over the last few days. Rarely do you see markets go through what they refer to as a snapback recovery, following when you have these very, very violent, swift, market declines. And it takes several weeks, for the markets, to find a bottom, with stocks, for the most part, retesting the original lows before they ultimately recover. And that was the case, in 2010 this happened, when we remember that flash crash that we went through, as well as the sell-off in 2011 that was all around the debt ceiling debate. I mean, I can remember like that was yesterday. Both cases proved to be, buying opportunities, as you are working through these violent changes on a day-to-day basis until the market had stabilized. So, we're getting to it's hard to believe this is August, and we were even having these discussions because typically, the markets get fairly quiet.
How challenging is this, Chuck? We have basically 1 month of the third quarter and then just the fourth quarter left for the entire year. I don't want to, me, I'm an eternal optimist. Is 2015 lost?
Harry, I don't want to say that it's lost. I do want to say it's been
missing.
It's been certainly challenging, and we have a lot of ground to make up relatively quickly. And I don't want to profess to be a technician, but you talk about charting and how long it takes to recover, and the amount of time. You think about, we went from the highs that we hit. It took about 35 days to where we were yesterday. And it takes you multiply that times about 1.4 from a technician's point of view, and that's when you make that V, that violent V as it's referred to, and then you move back up, and that should take in the mid-50s number of days for that to happen. Now, don't take that to the bank. Certainly, I think what this provides your listeners to do, if we talk about this, it seems like forever, that you need to take a look at what you own and why you own it.
And that average you talked about, and you're not guaranteeing it. I like the way you go about your business, Chuck, which is why you're the best in my view. You're basically saying that if the average were to play out, you're halfway through the fourth quarter at that point.
Well, you are, Harry, and you know.
Then you get Thanksgiving, Christmas, and a lot of
We pretty much for the last hour we chatted about domestic. We didn't talk anything about Europe. We talked about
30 seconds
about China. I think you need to take a real hard look at what you own and why you own it, and it's probably a good time, to certainly reevaluate if necessary. So we're back on track for next week, Harry. We'll see you on Tuesday.
6 days from now, 609-383-2010. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck Malamut and the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley. Chuck has perfected his concept of total asset management with the all-important asset allocation. And it is weeks like the past 6 trading sessions, Chuck, where that is more important than ever, isn't it?
Harry, it is. There's no doubt about it.
Good to be with you.
Thanks. We'll see you soon.
And thanks to John D'Alessandro for the very beautiful surprise on Chuck's 1-year anniversary at Morgan Stanley. We'll be back. Linda and Vincent Novelli. And, this is like 2 different worlds because real estate, as Chuck mentioned, he calls it the third rung in the stool. Real estate right now, and we're speaking nationally at this point, not necessarily purely at the local level, which is a little bit different, but it's back to 2005, 2006 levels in terms of both existing home sales and new home sales, and in terms of companies that build and their positivity in terms of psychology and what they're doing. It is a whole different atmosphere in real estate, and we have a 30-minute real estate program that we do twice a month coming up next, the Novelli Team of Realty.